or it's actually a reoccurring spirit that when I was a young child, my mom used to do set design for this theater that was designed in 1952. It was called the Haylofter Theater and Malthouse Theater in Burlington, also known as the Haylofters.
The Late Night Legends podcast is meant for a mature audience. Topics covered may be violent or sexual in nature and are not suitable for sensitive listeners. Please be aware of your surroundings. For specific trigger warnings, please see the episode's show notes. Testimony shared by guests of this show are their own and do not necessarily reflect the views of the Late Night Legends hosts or staff. This podcast and any linked materials should not be considered medical or professional advice, nor is the information a substitute for the expertise or treatment from a professional. Listener discretion is advised. Watch out.
Excellent. Well, welcome everybody to Late Night Legends. This is Dirty D here with Phil McCracken.
Phil McSpooky tonight.
Phil McSpooky here with you today. Phil McSpooky and Dirty. I should go with Dirty today. Can't be. You got the Phil McSpooky, so I got
Dreadful D.
Dreadful D is here today with Phil McSpooky. We're here with Late Night Legends. You can catch us live on YouTube right now and all major streaming platforms afterwards. We are gonna go through a few fun and spooky things. We're gonna give some personal stories as well as a couple stories that are out there floating around. So without further ado, Phil McSpooky, would you like to talk about some of your personal paranormal experiences?
Oh yeah. Let's start. This is kind of the one that brought Kay to the show, and I can talk about my perspective of that. I grew up on a farm. It's like an old farmhouse, but the land's been farmland for, hundreds of years. And it was kind of interesting because Kay and I moved back in there for a little bit, and there was one night in particular that I was kind of like following her around, and I was talking with her and whatnot, and I saw her go down the stairs. And so I follow her down the stairs. I'm like calling to her, "Hey, Kay, come here." And she kept walking. I'm like, "Kay, what's going on?" I walk down the stairs. I follow her around the corner. And as I turn the corner, she's not there. And I'm like, wow, that was quick. So I walk down the little 15 feet around the next corner, gone. And I'm like, what in the world? I literally just saw Kay. And then I hear her call all the way from upstairs. It was the weirdest thing. I had literally been following my wife down the staircase, talking to her, saw her clear as day, turned the corner, she's gone. And she was upstairs the whole time. And there were a couple other instances where I would be having, I would hear Kimberly call my name. I'd come out of the bedroom, look at her, look for her, can't find her. And it sounds clear as day like she's calling me from 5 feet on the other side of the wall. And nowhere. She's not even in the house. She's outside doing things with the chickens or whatnot. It was one of the weirdest things that I'd experienced. And it was so surreal, seeing my wife round the corner, following her, to the point where I could almost reach out and touch her. And then she was gone. That was one of the creepiest things that I ever experienced. And then it was
wild.
There was another time, I work nights and I was at work and I get this text from Kay while she's at the house. She's at the farmhouse, parents are out of town and whatnot. And she goes, "There's something going on in the house." And, I'm kind of in between doing stuff at work. So I'm like, "What's going on?" And she said, I walked down the stairs and we had this little, it's like a child gate just to keep the dogs upstairs, and it slams shut. And she said she thought it was really strange. Maybe she just closed it too hard. She kind of walks downstairs, does a couple things, and then she hears a door slam shut upstairs. She walks upstairs. She doesn't know kind of like what's making that noise, and she sees the gate open and slam back shut. And she's texting me all this, and she's freaking out. The dog Coda is barking at air. There's just nothing there. She's like, I kind of step away into a corridor, and I give her a call. She's bawling on the phone. She's like, I don't know what to do. There's something in the house with me. The things are slamming. The dogs are barking and losing their mind. I have this terrible, uneasy feeling. And I'm sitting there going, how am I going to explain to my boss that my wife is being terrorized by a ghost and I need to go home? So I eventually I hear on the phone something like slam. She just sprints. She just takes off and she runs out into the car and she like locks herself in the car and is just like sobbing in there. I have to go back. I'm telling her just to text me, keep me updated. Eventually she stays out there for like an hour and comes back into the house and things had settled down, and she ended up making it through the night. I was like, I can't come home. Like, there's no way I can explain to my boss that there's a ghost and I need to go rescue my wife. But those two stories in particular, there were a few other little things that happened, socks, like a sock ball would get thrown kind of across the room and would hit Kimberly and stuff. It always seemed to like kind of revolve around Kimberly. I don't know what the deal was with that. I don't really know why they picked on Kimberly. But yeah, those are some interesting little ghost stories and weird things that happened and things that I can't explain, especially like seeing my wife like literally disappear. It was the weirdest thing.
That is pretty wild, man. Like, I'm not super well versed on, what kind of spirits that might be. If anyone in chat can think about, what kind of, creatures could possibly, do these type of hauntings.
Yeah, I think it's like a mimic is what they say sometimes and whatnot, but yeah. It's one thing to like hear a voice, maybe I'm hearing things or something like that. Seeing it was a whole different beast.
Yeah, man, that would freak me out, that's for sure. I would not I'd not be down for that. So I'm going to go into kind of what what I've experienced, which is just like our other host over here, Franklin. Frank, I think we call him Frank Wynn is what he goes by typically.
Frank
Wynn, yeah, that's right. So like, unlike, kind of like Frank Wynn, I am a skeptic, and I definitely question everything. I'm not someone that's easily just open to these type of situations, but there have been situations I cannot explain. One specifically is a story of, or it's actually a reoccurring spirit that when I was a young child, my mom used to do set design for this theater that was designed in 1952. It was called the Haylofter Theater and Malthouse Theater in Burlington, also known as the Haylofters. And when we were there was all types of paranormal stuff that would happen between. My mom used to talk about how when she'd be painting, all of a sudden something would just start playing the piano, and the piano would just start playing randomly, and she would just be like, okay, that's enough. I appreciate if you'd stop it. And so then, it would stop, but it was for the most part, it seemed like it was a friendly spirit. There was no negative hauntings with people, but I experienced, just like you could feel the aura in that place. There's a lot of underground tunnels that go throughout the city in that area from, back in the 1800s. They've since been closed down, but there's all types of different spirits and stuff that people have reported in that area. But specifically, I'm going to go a little in depth into this one because it's a pretty neat little story. So this spirit, they named her Esmeralda. So I'm going to talk about this story a little bit. The historic Malthouse Theater certainly has a right to be haunted, surviving the Civil War and sporting mysterious underground tunnels to its own dungeon. The building was started in its life as Jacob Muth Brewery in 1852. In 1868, Muth built a malt house and devoted his production solely to malting barley, producing up to 90,000 bushels per season. In 1990, the Fink Ewan Company took over the malting business until Prohibition brought them to bankruptcy in 1943. In 1943, the Haylofters purchased the building back taxes around $850. So they bought this building for $850. They tore down the parts of the building that couldn't be in use, but kept the 90-seat theater and called it the Malthouse Theater. But anyways, this spirit named Esmeralda, if you look up this, the Malthouse Theater, Haylofter, there's multiple stories. On this story alone, this was kind of written by someone named Mary Sutherland that I'm going to talk about as well. She is a known paranormal I don't know what you'd say exactly, paranormal advocate. I don't know. Anyway, she's a known paranormal person in the Burlington area. They actually owned a small sci-fi cafe, and she wrote a full book on the different hauntings in my hometown of Burlington. But there's been multiple stories on this. That this same little post that was put on Facebook throughout this page, a few people that worked there previously actually had comments on it. The one person, JB Lee, said, "I was directing a show and always made sure when we were done rehearsing by 10 p.m. One night, near opening, we ran late and suddenly the lights all flickered and went out. I called out, 'We're almost done, Essie,' and they went back on. True story, the only one I've ever had, the only one of several I've experienced." This one said, "During a curtain call rehearsal for We Will Rock You, the stage ghost light," I guess apparently they have a stage ghost light, "fell over next to her." And she said it was very freaky. Another person said, "I have a video of my purse moving with an orb around the ad room. Definitely something about it. Was friendly though." They said that the spirit Esmeralda is friendly. So here's a little story that this Mary Sutherland wrote in her book that is called Haunted Burlington, Wisconsin. She's a little out there. Mary's a little out there. She's a good time. But she wrote this whole book, so I don't think she's an English major, but this is a story that she wrote in there. The Malthouse Theater in Burlington was in Burlington, home of the Haylofters Community Theater. As a resident ghost that the locals call Esmeralda, or the Lady in Blue, as they call her, because they've seen physical appearances of this woman. Along with Esmeralda, strange things happen, such as seeing lights flicker and go out, and theater props being moved when no one is around. During production of Camelot, the director unlocked and opened up the theater to find the candles on the... Let me move this so I'm looking at my camera. The candles on the stage have been recently lit. It has also been reported that the upper left corner of the backstage has a cold, clammy feeling even when the rest of the stage is warm. Esmeralda's personality is described as quite genial, and she is always seen wearing a long blue Victorian dress. It has been reported that once, when rehearsing a children's show, the kids, knowing nothing of Esmeralda, came in from outside in the area behind the theater to say that a lady in a long blue dress was floating back behind them. Some people have reported having sensations of being touched, just to turn around, no one's there. Others have claimed to have experienced a strong presence and the eerie feeling of not being alone in the room. The Malthouse Theater is also known to have an underground tunnel. The entrance can be found in a small stone building outside of the main building. I've actually personally been down in this tunnel. It is pretty spooky. I have gone there and found it to have several levels. Unfortunately, typically the tunnel entrances I have encountered, these entrances were also sealed. They are all sealed. You can only get down about 20 feet or so. They used to connect throughout the city, but they've since been shut down. People that have either have a business or residence built over these tunnels have reported scuffling sounds and voices behind the tunnel walls. Most hearing these sounds assume they are ghosts, and they very well may be, but they could also be a more physical nature. I have often thought that behind the secrecy of these tunnels, there may be a group that not only knows about the tunnels, but is also actively using them for the reasons known to them. I don't think that's possible personally, just due to the fact that anything that I've seen, they've been sealed and collapsed by rock, but who knows? I remember several years back that the Madison Police Department had a severe meth problem. Although they knew that some group was actively disturbing meth in the area, they hunted high and low for their labs, not giving up. They continued to search and finally came upon these tunnels. So apparently at some point they thought that these tunnels may have been where they were underground trafficking meth, but they've also found that these tunnels were shut down. Several miles from Burlington is a small town named Rochester that also has underground tunnels running under the streets. One popular haunted place is known for its underground tunnel is called Chance's. It's a small restaurant on the same side of the street where the first house on the right. I'm not going to go through this lady's crazy stuff now. She really strays. She comes back to the theater thing at some point, but she really strays around quite a bit. When you meet this woman, she's very eccentric, let's just say that. But anyways, I've heard of all these stories of this underground tunnel network and the different hauntings and this woman Esmeralda, the lady in blue. When I was a kid there, you definitely felt some kind of a presence there. It seemed like she was friendly. My mom used to work on these theater sets till 2 a.m., 1 a.m. in the morning, as well as other people did. And I mean, while there very well could have been a presence, they also could have been very tired and could have been hallucinating a little. Who knows? But I think there's definitely some type of presence there, but I don't think it is a dark one per se. But that's just a little bit about my personal story. That did not go near as long as I hoped it would go.
We really should have gone down the meth tunnels, and
we should have. We should have really talked about these.
Joan goes, I always get meth and ghosts mixed up.
Yeah, for sure. Oh, I'm seeing there's a lot in chat between meth.
It's just Frank being. I don't know.
Joan says she always mixes up ghosts and meth. That's something you should probably look into, Joan. You shouldn't be mixing those up. Meth ghosts. Frank's posting a bunch of guns with hot dogs in them.
He's just posting everything hot dog related.
That's good.
I don't know. It's Ballpark Frank tonight.
Ballpark Frank win. So we're gonna go into a story that Phil McSpooky has gone into about some type of dark storms, dark tornadoes.
Yeah. So I have a couple different storms, but one of the big ones that I wanted to highlight was this. It was in 1955. It was called the Blackwell tornado. And shout out to Kay for helping me do this research, because Lord knows my ADHD brain could only handle so much organization. So big shout out to Kay. So on May 25th, 1955, substantial storms broke out across the Panhandle, including Texas, Kansas, and Oklahoma. Eyewitnesses reported winds around 70 to 80 miles per hour that morning. This was one of the deadliest tornado outbreaks ever, and it happened over, I think it was a span of a few days, but that day in particular, the first significant storm or tornado of the day was rated an F4. It developed in northwest of Wellington, Texas, and moved into western Oklahoma, killing 2 people southwest of Cheyenne, Oklahoma. Over the next few hours, nearly 20 tornadoes were reported in Oklahoma near Mayfield, Kingfisher, Camargo, and Deer Creek. I'm so sorry if I butcher some of these names, guys. From the Midwest, please, I know you guys are really nice over there in the Midwest. Be gracious with me. So these storms moved from north to northeast across the state. I've been on so much tornado talk lately, doing some of this research and stuff. All my TikTok is now tornadoes. And some of the creepiest quotes I've gotten is, one of them was all you can do is pray for lightning, talking about nocturnal tornadoes. That quote really messed me up, because if you ever watch and then all of a sudden lightning shoots up the sky and there's this giant wedge tornado, that's got to be one of the eeriest feelings ever. Oh, couldn't imagine it.
No, it's creepy as all hell.
So at about 6:50 p.m. Central Time, radar detected a new storm developing very close to Oklahoma City, moving north. The storm moved north and produced an initial tornado touchdown about 8 miles west of Marlin around 9 p.m. Central Time. It caused some light damage as it moved almost due north into Kay County. The tornado passed to the east and in the northeast of Tonkawa and destroyed a few homes, while the storm also produced baseball-sized hail in Tonkawa. Hail is wild. Baseball-sized hail?
It is. I've been in some of those, but like, I think it's funny. A lot of the names that you are talking about that you're struggling with, they're Native American, and that's like a lot of the cities here in Wisconsin. They've made jokes about people trying to pronounce them properly, and so you're not alone.
Yeah. No, it's gonna be rough, guys. So bear with me. I mean, I'm like sour cream white over here. I ain't got nothing to me. So the tornado continued to move north and moved through the east side of Blackwell, causing complete destruction in much of the east side of town. 19 people were killed in Blackwell, as well as one person to the northeast of Blackwell. And Frank, Doug, if you can work on pulling up picture of the 1955 Blackwell. They only have drawings, but it might be helpful for people to see because it's creepy. The
1955 what?
The 1955 Blackwell tornado, and it's just like artist depictions of like eyewitness accounts. So the tornado struck Blackwell at 9:27 p.m. Central Time and destroyed the entire east side of the town. And what's weird about this tornado is it moved almost directly north. I mean, it was north all the way until like the very end. It kind of like turned and kind of fizzled out, but it was directly north almost the entire time it was on the ground. Approximately 80 blocks in town were damaged or destroyed. The Blackwell Journal-Tribune newspaper conducted a building by building survey across the east side of the town, listing approximately 85 homes and buildings as damaged but occupied. About 70 homes and buildings as having extensive damage but repairable, and about 190 homes and buildings as completely destroyed, devastated. The information from this extensive building by building survey was smoothed and used to create the damage intensity map of the tornado as it moved through Blackwell. The Riverside Osteopathic Hospital on East College Street suffered extensive damage, and doctors were labored for hours under candlelight and flashlight and didn't quit until they were certain that all the patients were in position to move to another hospital. So crazy thinking about that. Like, you ever seen the show The Pit? They're going through all that stuff, like a mass casualty event stuff. I couldn't imagine trying to like work in a hospital while massive destruction has destroyed everything. And this was an F5. This was one of the strongest tornadoes ever recorded, and it was devastating. To make matters worse, heavy rain that continued after the tornado hampered rescue work that evening and caused the here's a rough one. The Chicaskia River to flow out of its banks.
Oh, I just want to talk about this.
Oh man, just giving me hard words to pronounce.
Yes, this is going to be a segment for the other show.
To flow out of its banks into some low sections of towns the following day. And 4 other tornadoes were reported in Kay and Grant counties on the evening of May 27th, just 2 days after the Blackwell disaster. Fortunately, this time, these weak tornadoes stayed to the north of Blackwell and caused no injuries. When the warnings were sounded about the storm, it was not necessary to tell people twice to get to a cellar, according to the newspaper account. One eyewitness in Blackwell had an interesting visual observation of the tornado. Floyd Montgomery, yeah. There's another one, and it shows like the column with like the circles like around it, and it is eerie.
Yeah, there's a lot of creepy little videos. But fun fact, this was in 1955. Not super great photos.
No, the iPhone had yet to be invented. Yeah.
It looks like a lot of the disaster stuff is what they show, but there are a few of the tornado itself. I'm looking to find the best ones here.
So Floyd Montgomery lived 9 blocks west of the main path of the tornado and submitted his count to the Weatherwise magazine in June 1956. He described it as he looked to the east from the door of his storm cellar as the tornado moved through Blackwell, which, having a storm cellar coming from a guy from the Pacific Northwest, that seems like such a foreign concept to me. No way. We had a tornado warning the other day, and then we got nothing. We didn't even get lightning. It was the lamest storm warning ever.
Oh, really?
They're like, oh, you have a potential for a tornado. Me being as oblivious as I am, I'm like, oh, that sounds kind of cool. I've never seen one of those. I have no idea. So he described it as he looked to the east. He described a fire up near the top of the funnel that looked like a child's 4th of July pinwheel. Yeah. The light was so intense I had to look away. He describes the light as the same color as an electric arc welder, but much brighter, and it seemed to be turning to the right like a beacon lamp on a lighthouse.
This is just a depiction of it, but this is...
Yes, that's what I've seen.
So that if I saw that, I would think the apocalypse is coming.
I would think the world's ending. Absolutely. Yeah. I would be on my knees praying. I would be for sure a goner.
Yeah. No, for sure. And there's several different examples of this. Like,
yeah.
So I mean, it's not even like it's because I got, obviously it's at that point it's going to be hard for anyone to record this thing. I mean, it's
right
in the 50s. So I mean, there really wasn't a good way to take photos, but there, like, the accounts of it are pretty consistent. So I mean, that alone,
yeah,
shows that there's some validity to it, which is kind of a little creepy.
And I mean, just to think, like, this dude looked out from a storm cellar. Like, I mean, people are losing their lives. This is one of the strongest tornadoes ever, and for this guy to look out and see this, I mean, he had to be terrified. I mean, seeing nothing like this ever. And when he recounts, when he says it was so bright I had to look away, I mean, it had to light up the sky. And just to see that, like, aura of just bright blue, winds howling, things getting thrown all over the place. I mean, when it comes to like an F5 tornado, I've seen pictures of like wood, like from a tree or a 2x4 or something, going through concrete, like through curbs and everything. So, I mean, the winds are just astronomical. It's hard to fathom how strong these are. And yeah, I mean, that had to be absolutely terrifying. I'm getting goosebumps just looking at it and thinking about it.
So some of the damage that was done by this thing too is kind of creepy alone. I'll try to show some of these, but like I'm looking through this as you're talking about it, and some of the damage is weird as all hell too. Like, look at that. Like, yeah, that's not normal.
Right?
Like,
yeah. At one point there was a car there.
It created a sculpture.
And if you can go back to the path, that was also weird of it. And it was just like directly due north. There was no wavering or anything. And there was a tornado miles north of it. And it was called like the Udell tornado. Mm-hmm. And that one it was like a normal tornado path. It kind of like moved around a little bit. This one was straight and narrow all the way until it finally fizzled out a little bit. But... So some possible explanations of this, other than it's obviously ghosts or aliens or something. But it's like a St. Elmo's fire, also called, I'm going to butcher this one again, guys. A corposant, an Hermes fire, a ferrol, witch fire or witch's fire. It's a weather phenomenon in which a luminous plasma is created by a corona discharge from a rod-like object, such as a mast, spire, chimney, or animal horn, in an atmospheric electric field. It has also been observed on the leading edges of aircraft, as in the case of the British Airways Flight 009 and by the U.S. Air Force pilots. I don't know. That sounds way too technical to be real.
Yeah, so that's the path there.
Yeah.
So it went straight and then it like hooked at the very end.
Very end, just as it's like losing its steam. But
And they don't usually do that.
no, that's weird. And you can see how I was supposed to pronounce Tonkawa? Tonkawa?
Hankawa.
Yeah. There you go. I'm just going to start forwarding these to you, Doug.
Well, I'm just start sending words. That's what I'm going to do.
So the explanation, the intensity of this effect that was mentioned, a blue or violet glow around the object, often accompanied by a hissing or buzzing sound, is proportional to the strengths of the electric field and therefore noticeable primarily during thunderstorms or volcanic eruptions. So it makes sense that if this was such a powerful storm, that the effect would be much more intense. St. Elmo's fire is also named after St. Erasmus of Formia, also known as St. Elmo, the patron of saint of sailors. The phenomenon, which can warn of an imminent lightning strike, was regarded by sailors with awe and sometimes considered to be a good omen. I don't think anybody that lived through this would say it was a good omen. So that was the Blackwell tornado. That was the main one that I did some research on, but there were some other ones that deserve a mention. So the Gary England tornado in the 1990s. This one, I kind of like saw the footage of it and I was a little bit skeptical of this, but essentially people think that it might have been a UFO. There was, in the news footage, there was a flash of light that was caught. And I watched it and listened to some like analysis of it, and I agreed that it just kind of seemed like, I don't know, like a bug or something. It didn't seem like a super, oh yeah, that's probably a UFO.
The tornado itself looks pretty crazy though.
It was crazy, and it was actually one of the worst storms in recorded history. Yeah. That's gnarly.
Yeah, no, it is a weird, it's not like the cone or like the funnel type looking thing. It's like a pillar.
Yeah.
So it's kind of strange.
Honestly, I mean, are you more scared of like a pillar like that or like a wedge? Where it's just like the whole, I mean, miles wide.
Yeah, I think the ones that look like small hurricanes are terrifying.
Yeah, right?
Yeah, those are, this would be scary just in the way that like that thing looks like it's stirring up a bunch of mud and dust and stuff, making it kind of look like a turd in the sky.
Yeah.
But it is weird in its shape. It's not very typical.
Another one that was worth mentioning was a 2013 EF5 tornado. 2 days before the storm, there were some lights in the sky. People were noticing and recording. Sorry, let me see. Pull up my notes here. Where did everything go? There we go. Okay. So 2 days before the storm, there were some lights in the sky people were noticing and recording. And the sky was filled, this is quote, "The sky was filled with strange objects of different sizes and colors. My girlfriend was so freaked out she almost wrecked the car. There were multiple crafts with 3 lights in a triangle shape and red lights in the center pulsating. There were small, bright white circles that zigzagged through the sky. Some of the small balls would zoom in. A big black cloud would appear, and then the objects would zoom away." So this lady actually like took some footage of this and uploaded it onto YouTube. Just, it was kind of weird, weird phenomenon. And then a couple days later, this tornado comes through and just destroys everything in its path.
I found it. Here it is.
That's exactly, yep. That's a great, that's an eyewitness account.
Eyewitness account. No, that was the one picture I had earlier. That was one that, that was supposedly from that.
Yeah.
So I mean, that is very creepy looking.
And it was absolutely devastating, but it was weird that this lady posted this video of these lights, and then a couple days later, all of this happens.
Here's this one too. This is weird, man. Look at the blue on the back, like the blue on the top and the bottom right. That's weird.
And people go and chase these, and like,
right?
Just these little cars. I'm not about that. No. So that was weird. It was also like there was a military base nearby, just a few miles north, and people were wondering like maybe it was like a weird aircraft or maybe something more UFO related. They weren't sure what was going on, and for all we know, it could be nothing, but kind of a weird coincidence. Another two last ones here. The butterfly people of Joplin. This is kind of an interesting one and kind of a cool story. So people claim that during the tornado, a winged butterfly people would fly down to the chaos to protect them or usher someone who had died to heaven. And it was kind of interesting because I was looking up like what a butterfly symbolizes, and it kind of means like the rebirth and everything. And so the town of Joplin got destroyed by this tornado, and they've kind of rebuilt and embraced the butterfly. And so they have like this little, I don't know what you call it, but it's like a big thing for butterflies to live in. It's kind of like an atrium for birds, but it's for butterflies. And they have all these murals everywhere, and it's super cool. And they've kind of embraced like the butterfly people, and the butterfly is a symbol of rebirth for the town. But I know there's been like people that have witnessed like in massive tragedy type scenarios, seeing like angels come down and either protect them or take these souls kind of up. And this kind of goes along with that. This girl actually posted like a picture of like a tornado that had like ravaged the town, and then she was like holding a little butterfly on her finger like immediately after. It was kind of an interesting little photo, but it was cool to see how the town is like embraced this sort of like symbol of rebirth and everything. And then the last one, this one was creepy. So it's called The Boy with the Pop Bottle on His Head. Oh yeah, see? Butterfly people.
Yep. Boy with the pop bottle on his head?
Yeah, the boy with the pop bottle on his head, which I heard a pop bottle on his head and I was like, that's weird. But as you read this story, it just takes you down this whole rabbit hole on Reddit. And it's just, if you ever want to waste a few hours of your life, not waste, but, you know, spend them non-productively researching a topic, I did that with this. The boy with the pop bottle on his head, he was a 12-year-old boy that predicted a storm would hit Hazelhurst, Mississippi. So this kid would come and he would like touch people and he'd be able to tell them things that they didn't tell other people. That is not quite it. Not quite it. But you get the gist. A boy with a pop bottle on his head.
Yeah.
But this kid would come and he would like touch people and he would tell them things about them that they never shared with people. And it was super weird. This kid was kind of becoming like I don't know, just this weird story in this town. Well, he prophesied that this massive tornado would hit and kill a bunch of people, essentially. Well, his prophecy did come true a few days later when an EF4 tornado hit the town and killed over 30 people. But what's weird is after that happened, naturally people would be like, this kid was saying something. Let's go look for him. He was never seen again. He was gone.
So this image is actually from a movie that they did for this. So this is actually in the same line of what you're talking about.
I didn't know they made a movie about it. That's awesome.
Yeah, it looks like I don't know when it was, but yeah, there was a. Yeah, apparently, because like I looked into that, I saw this originally, and I'm like, oh, yeah, I don't think this is gonna be it. And I'm like, wait a second, but yeah, apparently this is a movie that they. I'm guessing it was like a real small. It looks like there's a trailer for it in 2019, so right around that time.
Oh yeah. So yeah, this kid was never seen again, never heard from, nothing, and I just find that so creepy that this kid could. Would prophesy this. He would say things about people just from like a simple touch. And then this massive tornado hits. I'm sure people were looking for him everywhere because I'm sure people were like, that kid said this was going to happen. We need to go find him. How did he know this? Gone. Without a trace. So
that's weird.
I thought that was super interesting. And as somebody who, I would consider myself a believer or a believer, as some people in the chat like to say. Especially like ever since seeing, I don't even know how to describe it, fake Kimberly. pseudo Kimberly, ghost Kimberly walking around. Ever since that, I've certainly been a believer. And I mean, I've had those instances where, you know, at the hospital, somebody like passes away or whatnot, and there's an energy that leaves the room and a new energy that exists. And it's one of those things. It's so hard to explain if you've never spent time around a dead person. There's just an energy that has left the room, and then there's a new energy and an uncomfortableness that replaces it. I remember oh, go ahead.
Well, I was gonna say, so that's the thing with me is that I am not a super hardcore paranormal believer, but I do believe in, like you're saying, like these energies. I think there is like some type of energy out there. I don't know whether it is paranormal. I don't know whether it's, you know, something otherworldly, like, you know, like between heaven and hell type thing. But a situation that I wasn't going to talk about because it is kind of weird. But something that happened with my son, my wife and I, about 3 years ago, maybe 2 years ago when he was 3 years old. So just to give some backstory, my mom passed away about 16 years ago. And so she's been gone for a while now. So my son has never met her. Anyways, we were on our way to go to Christmas at my dad's. And as we were on our way to go to Christmas, my wife is driving down the road. And in the foreground, you know, way down the road, we see this light that's like, it's bouncing. It looks like someone's jogging on the side of the road almost, which is weird because it's winter. It's cold. We thought, like, oh, who's jogging on the side of the road? So it gets closer and closer to us, and then it's gone. And my wife and I both saw this, and then it's gone, just gone. You know, it could have been just like a flash of light on the windshield or whatever. Anyways, my son, who's about, I think he actually was 2 at this point, says, "Hi, Grandma." And then we're like, "What the hell?" And he's like, "Hi, Grandma." And we're like, "What are you playing back there? You playing pretend?" He's like, "No, I'm talking to Grandma." And we're like, what are you talking about?" And he's like, "I'm talking to Grandma in the sky." And we're like, just mind blown. Like, he's never met her. He doesn't know who she is. We never even talked about her with him yet. It's too young to kind of even discuss how that works. But that freaked both of us out. We both got super emotional. It's like, it was a crazy moment. And
man, that gives me goosebumps just hearing that.
It gives me goosebumps saying it every time I say it because there's no way to explain it. You know, like I can't even try and put anything together off of it happened. Like something happened, and there's no way for me to explain it. Like I said, it's not necessarily that I believe it's paranormal. It might be an energy. It might be something was there. Can't put it together. Crazy stuff though, man. So just wanted to throw my 2 cents in. Yeah, no,
that's wild.
It was insane. We told when we got to when we got to my dad's house met around the family. You know, I told everybody about it, and like people were crying, and like it was like a crazy moment we all had just because I got emotional talking about it because I'm just like, if I can figure out why this would have happened, I could like justify it or something. But like, he's never met her. He doesn't even know who she is. And he's like, "No, Grandma in the sky. She was talking to me." I'm like, I was mind blown.
And how old was he?
About 2 years old.
I mean, there's no way he conceptualizes death, heaven, spirits.
No.
And just to say, "Oh yeah, she's up there in the sky." What?
Yeah, probably top 10 craziest things that's happened in my life as far as like happening. Like, there's no way to explain it.
If that's only top 10, Doug, I want nothing to do with your life. That's so scary.
It's probably top 5. I will say it's probably top 5. It was less scary and more like, because it wasn't a negative experience. So like it was kind of a moment of like feeling happy in the way that I feel like she is in a good place or something, that she's able to communicate with him. So that was cool.
Yeah. I always told Kimberly, I said, if I ever die, I'm going to come back and haunt you so hard. I said, I'm just going to be right around the corner, scaring you, throwing socks at you, just scaring the living daylights out of you.
I saw the funniest things the other day about like, people never leaving their significant other, like where they say, would you move on? Would you move on if I ever passed away and all this stuff? And there was like this video of someone basically doing like a weekend at Bernie's with their significant other, like, hey, would you like another drink? Like, he's just like, he's dressing her up and like, this is funny to a certain point, and then it just gets like kind of creepy. But yeah.
So I remember it was early on when we were working med surg, and this was like back in like the COVID days. So rooms were like double, triple, 6, 7 patients at a time. And we had this patient pass, and I had to go in and take one of the IV pumps out of the room. And this was the first time I've been around like a deceased patient. And I walked in, and the patient's been bagged, and we're just waiting for transport to come take him to the morgue and everything like that. You walked in, I would have thought I was grave robbing. I mean, the feeling of you are not supposed to be here was so strong. I mean, I was sick to my stomach of this like energy, and I grabbed that pump. I got right the hell out of Dodge. I sprinted out of that room. You would have thought, I mean, I was moving so fast. If I had flipped out of the light, I'd have been out of the room before it was dark. I mean, I was moving, and I remember that. And that was the first time I was like, oh my goodness, like there's an energy difference with like living people and dead people. And
yeah,
just there's a gravity that, when somebody's in the room, that even like, that person was like more of a positive person. They were great to be around. And then you walk in the room and it was so negative and dark and like, you are not supposed to be here. Yeah. Oof. Creepy.
That is definitely creepy. Yeah. My wife is definitely a, paranormal believer, and, I always mess with her all the time. I'm not allowed to say that I don't believe in certain things, because then she gets mad at me. She's like, you're welcome into her world. I'm like, no, let's do it. Bring it on. And she gets so mad at me. I'm like, if I, encountered something, I'll be fully perceptive to it, and I'll be like, yeah, this shit's real. Like I said, because of what did happen 3 years ago, that has changed my tone a little bit. There's definitely something there. I can't explain it, but because of that experience, I can't say that there's nothing. All I can say is there's something. Can't explain it, and I like to justify a lot of things. Like even with that story with like the theater in my home city, Esmeralda, and everything. I think that there's a lot of things there, whether it be people tired, people used to work, do stuff in that theater. So like the waking hours of 2 a.m., 1 a.m. setting up. And there's something to that, like the whole, was it like hypoxia of like just going crazy while being tired. And so I try to justify a lot of these things as a skeptic. There's been certain, like my friends, they used to do some ghost hunting actually. In like cemeteries and stuff, and they would take, just as like a lot of teen, back in the, early 2000s, it was real big with ghost hunters and all that stuff. And people would go out there, they bought all this equipment, they'd go out to the cemeteries. They had some pretty crazy photos, I will say that, where like there would just be like random light going, flying across the screen, or a random like orb behind one of their heads. Some of that you can't explain. Some of it could be just like the lighting hitting the lens differently or something, whether it be a headlight or something. I always try to justify it, but I'm more than willing to listen to any stories and be one to be like, that's creepy. Like these tornadoes, that tornado that went, straight for like 50 miles, like
right.
Just tore up the entire road. Like, that's pretty crazy to me that it didn't follow weather patterns and so forth. There's things like that you can't explain, that while I can't explain, I can't exactly say that is paranormal,
Right.
It could be aliens, but I mean, that is
right.
paranormal. That is a paranormal thing. So I somewhat believe in aliens in a way, but not necessarily a lot of the spooky ghosts and everything. Like when we were at the zoo a few years ago, they had a prehistoric exhibit where they had these what models would have been actual size of like woolly mammoths, saber-toothed tigers, and everything, and all these things. You're walking by all these things, looking at them, and then I look at my wife, look at my son, and I'm just like we are the outlier here. Like either we were put here on Earth by gods such as Christianity, or we were aliens. We invaded. Like to me, like the whole evolution doesn't line up in a way that I think it does. Like the evolution from ape to man. Like you see these woolly mammoths and saber-toothed tigers, and then we are these squishy meat bags.
Squishy
like
meat
you're
bags.
telling me this is the evolution from a giant tiger with fangs, or from a monkey, like a gorilla that has 20 times the strength of us. We're evolved from that. I don't know. Like I feel like we should have kept that part.
Right.
So yeah.
Oh man.
Just kind of like where my head sits with a lot of these things, like I like scary stuff. Even Halloween is my favorite time of the year. I love stuff that's dark. My wife always jokes about how when we're at home in the daytime, sometimes I just want it to be dark in our house, and I'll be like, Alexa, and I'll tell her to turn on Hello Darkness, my old friend. I'll tell her to turn that on as I'm shutting all the blinds in the house. She's just like, you're so fucking weird. I'm like, I love the darkness. I'm not someone that's opposed to like, if I'm in the pitch black area of somewhere, if I'm like in the woods, I'm more afraid of falling and like hurting myself or an animal of some type, it's a rabbit, than actual paranormal spooky stuff. But I'm a skeptic. I'm not saying it's not real. I'm just a skeptic in the way that I'd like to be proven of something being real.
I'm like the furthest thing from it, man. I am. I feel like I read a quote a long time ago, and it was like, the more you study science, how can you not believe in God and life after life? And it rings so true for me. I feel that there's something else that we can't see. There's an energy, there's this spirit, there's this aura, and hearing like the story about your kid and seeing grandma in the sky and feeling that energy personally, like leave a room after like time of death is announced, or even like when that the situation's not going well and that it's probably not coming back, and you can sense the energy is out of the room, or when on the other side of that, when new life is created. And I remember this study years ago, like looked under it was like electron microscope or electron fluoroscopy, and they watched like at the moment of conception on an egg this flash of light with no explanation why there's this flash of light that happens. Awesome. But I thought that was the coolest thing in the world, and you can feel it like when a baby is born into this world, this energy that lifts up a room. There's this whole, it's an incredible experience. And it is. And it's just one of those things that it made me go, oh my gosh, there's no way that there's not more to us than just flesh and bones and a couple electrons firing here and there type of a thing. And I think they've even like weighed bodies like immediately after death, and like now they get like a weight difference. I don't know if that's just TikTok showing me some promo for a new movie or not. I'm always on the TikTok, but
the tots, man.
I just think it's incredible, and I know I can appreciate a good skeptic. I try to approach it with a little bit of skepticism, but man, I fell for the Jack LaLanne power juicer back in the day. I fell for that promo. I'm terrible with upsells. I'm a believer right away on the whole paranormal everything. You remember years ago when Discovery did that mockumentary on mermaids? Did you ever see that? It was like it was a fake documentary. Man, I was so hook, line, and sinker. I'm like, mermaids are real. Heck yeah, that's cool.
I watched they did mermaids here on Late Night Legends, and I had a fucking great time listening to that. I think I made so many people angry while in chat on that one. I think because it was so crazy. Like it was so I didn't buy into it, so like as they were saying things, I was reciting lines from Little Mermaid, like just randomly. I'd be like, look at these things, aren't they unique? And they'd be like, they weren't catching on. And then finally Franklin caught on. He's like, what the hell? God damn it. So I was like citing lines from Little Mermaid.
I think it's so fun. I just watched the How I Met Your Mother mermaid episode where Jason Segel, Marshall's talking about how like every girl eventually becomes a mermaid type of thing. I just think it's funny that I was watching that today. But shout out to the Little Mermaid ride at Disneyland. That's my favorite ride.
It's
I
a
love
good
that
ride, man.
It's so good, especially on like a hot summer day. You go in there, it's nice and cool. You get to hear, what's her name? What's the big lady that's evil? Ursula. And she goes,
poor unfortunate souls.
Oh, I love that song.
Yeah, they got that. I've only been to Disney World, not Land. Actually, we were possibly planning on doing Land next year. But World has the same thing. It's the exact same ride, though. And yeah, that's a cool one. But
oh, yeah. It's always a good time.
We could definitely get into Disney by all means, but not super spooky. I'm sure, I know there are like different legends at Disney World and stuff like that where there's like a closed down area of Disney World and the Lost Island and all this stuff, but
that'd be a great topic for UK.
There you go.
Yep.
Holla out.
Final thoughts. What do you think, Doug?
Final thoughts. This is fun. I think that this is a great show and great people are on this show. And every once in a while you get a pretty, a couple superstars like us to come in here and really boost the ratings. That's what I'm hoping for.
Yeah. I mean, personally, I think our superpowers are humility and just recognizing our greatness, but not boasting about it.
It's true. True.
Yeah, I thought it was cool. I thought that story about your kid was awesome. Researching the tornadoes and everything that goes along with them. I feel like, you've seen the ghost episodes, the ghost hunters and stuff. And it's like anytime there's more like energy charge, whatever, there tends to be more ghost activity. And it would make sense that something as powerful as like a tornado would naturally bring something along with it.
I just had a random thought, just because we are, we are who we are. We are what's from the show we come from. On the note of Disney World, I wanted to really quick, it was funny, just because I might forget it for the next one. So we were on that Space Mountain ride or whatever, or not Space Mountain, the Spaceship Earth, the one that goes up into the Epcot or whatever. Super slow, dark, whatever. The lady was talking over the intercom, with the whole story of the Spaceship Earth or whatever. And then there was a certain point where it gets super quiet, and I didn't know that it gets super quiet. And I totally just, ripped one at that point. I ripped one loose, and everybody's just dying laughing. I'm like, who did that? It was funny, but it's before I forgot about it. But anyways, this is fun. This is a great show. Great people here. They do a lot of time. They put a lot of time research into these topics. We're trying to kind of model that with our own way on the other show of Super Balls. Really try and make that show into something what this is, which is a very well put together show with very good hosts.
Absolutely. Yep. This was super fun. Tune in next week for your normal hosts and your normal content, or the following Tuesday to us. Is it next Tuesday? Following Tuesday? One of these Tuesdays we're going to post an episode. Who knows?
I think we should be posting on Tuesday, but we'll see if it's good to go.
Yeah.
But I think Frank will take us out here. Tune in for Late Night Legends next week. Everybody have a great night. Have a very spooky night. Dreadful D and P McSpooky. Really appreciate you guys did today. Anyways. Have a great night, everybody.
Bye, guys.
I crept up the walkway. Was anyone home? And in the garden, I saw a tombstone. It said, rest in peace. Here lies Blackie the cat. Too bad he's gone. He can't cross your path. Oh, I didn't take a chance. I was too scared to knock. I ran away from that house and down the block. It was not my typical Halloween jaunt, so I went to the party and told my aunt. She set up the room for a masquerade ball, but I was still thinking of that really close call. When my friends arrived, they asked if I was all right. I said, stay away from that scary little house on Halloween night. Scary house.